Hello and welcome everybody. It's time for another non-duality chat. And today we're here with Tobias. Hi Tobias. Welcome.
Hello, Andrea.
How are you today?
Wonderful, thank you. Wonderful. And you?
So nice to see you. I'm happy to connect. I always love to join your Zooms. It's always
Well, thank you for inviting me on. I'm looking forward to having a lot of fun. I'm here willing and ready to answer any questions and talk whatever nonsense you wish me to talk.
First I just wanted to hear like a little bit more about your personal story. Like how did you get into non-duality from the beginning or like
Well,
I know you were a monk for a while, but I'm sure there's
uh,
other phases as well.
I'm happy. More than happy to tell you that, but I think you know what I have to say before, and it's not a disclaimer, but it is very relevant to remember that whilst we can talk about this story, it is a story. It's only a real thing when we judge it in the context of real time and space from the position of a subject living that life. So it's a story, but stories are still fun. Stories don't stop being fun.
It's still
So
fun to hear
if
them.
you ask how I got into non-duality, like many people I've seen who've come to the meetings, I would say in the story of their lives, in the apparent story of their lives, there'll have been something that's moving about within them that senses that something's not quite as it seems. There's a sort of yearning for something other, right? And so I would say, if you're saying, when did I get into non duality? I remember as a young teenager, I was very into literature. I remember writing a poem called The Tyranny of Form, of how punishing and assertive just form was. And I had no idea about non duality at all. But these feelings that this wasn't as it seemed was very strong. And I lived a normal life. I had normal jobs. I worked in the music industry for a bit in the city. I made a bit of money and then sort of got very bored with the world. And I lived in communes in Mexico and India for a long time. And then I'm in my mid 50s now. I guess when I was about 30, I sort of gave it all up. And I'd been increasingly influenced by the Divine Mother Kali and Hindu iconography. And I'd been in India and I had an enormous experience. And yeah, very potently that turned my life around. I became a monk for about 15 years. That was worshipping Kali, but the idea of me being separate and worshipping a god over here was falling apart, and it's in this the gravity with which I had formally taken it. It didn't seem to be a separation was real. And then discovered the teachings of traditional Advaita, people like Ramana and Nisargadatta. And I had an accident after about 15 years of being a monk, and I broke my back, and I left. And then I started attending the non-dual meetings of current teachers. And I bumped into Jim Newman was the first. And I went to a meeting a couple of years ago. And that was the first time I'd ever heard radical non-duality or even what it was. And the first words Jim Newman said, for anyone who doesn't know, Jim Newman's a wonderful speaker on this
How
subject.
did
And
you find
certainly,
it? How did you bump into him?
I had been going to Rupert Spira um, meetings, and Rupert Spira teaches a wonderful meditation that gives incredible results, but it's nothing to do with what we speak about in radical non-duality. And it was in those environs and in those uh, well, to tell you the truth, I had a glimpse when I was in that environment that kind of proved what he was saying in my mind wrong. And discussing this, people said, well, that's more like radical non-duality. Go and see this guy called Jim Newman. So I went and saw him, and I had a big, what would have then called an experience there. And after about a year or so of going to a lot of those meetings, the idea that I was going to meetings and those were things where non-duality was and it wasn't in other places stopped making any sense. And then I ran into Alexis, and at that stage, the idea of being a speaker there who has something and I over here who doesn't had gone, there was still a me being reported. So Alexis to me was only ever a friend, never a speaker. So we became very good friends. And whilst I was away with Alexis in Vietnam on a retreat, we just used to spend the evenings on my balcony and just rather than a speaker and somebody going, "Oh, wise person, tell me what you know," in just a very simple, loving communion of two friends, two good friends, right? Um, it was so simple. And Alexis sort of explained the same things that I'd heard before. And like, it was just really seeing that there was nothing in the way of anything, that this was it. And the me doesn't have to fall away because it's already not there. It's only in its own story that all that drama's there. And I'd been a hardcore monk. I mean, I might underplay it, just sort of skipping over that story, but I was like sleeping out in the rain and worshipping Kali 4:30 in the morning every morning without fail for like years and years, like really dedicated. And all that seeking and all that striving. And I was a celibate monk and I'm a normal guy, right? Normal guy. And that was like an effort and all that push and all that work and all that striving kind of collapsed in the revelation that it's all just saying, this isn't it, it's over there. This isn't it, it's over there. And like that, there was just a seeing that there's no question needing to be answered, there's no puzzle needing to be solved. And I'd always considered life an existential puzzle that needed to be figured out. And there's not an answer. The questions just stop. And then what is impersonally seen as just simply what is. And it's so bloody simple. And all the time speakers had said that to me. I thought, well, it doesn't seem very simple to me, mate. And so it never sat well with me that. But it's very simple. It is literally just this. And that how could it be more simple than that? But immediately the separate reporting self will say, we'll turn that into an object and it will try and relate to it. And what's not being seen is that turning it into an object and that trying to relate to it. That's it too. It's unconditionally just this. And that extraordinary revelation that it's not at all about a journey, it's not at all about getting or seeking or finding, that it's literally just this was, it's still shocking. It's still shocking.
And has it been like that the whole time since Vietnam, or has it been like fluctuations or?
Well, when you say has it been like that, like very naturally, that's supposing that's an experience that Tobias is now having it that was different before. And what's so crazy is that um, the dream of separation doesn't change into a new reality of wholeness. It just isn't there anymore. And so nobody can answer for that. Nobody can say, I am in this wholeness. I am at one with the wholeness. That's traditional non-duality considers those ideas, but it's just this wholeness, this totality. So Tobias doesn't have those experience, a new type of experiences. What you could say is after that apparent collapse, and the collapse is a story in time that only lives in the story of the me. I mean, outside of that illusion, there's no me, there's no time, there's no continuity. All that's just stories. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's nothing real to it. So there isn't a Tobias claiming this or that. What's so magical is this, it's no different there, is total oneness expressing itself to no one, just as words appearing, as this Zoom meeting appearing to appear. But it's only when this is what's happening now, here in my life, that it's a real thing and it has consequences. And we can tell stories about it that's real. But all that still goes on, but just no longer in the context of the real or time and space. It's just immediately just this conversation appearing to happen, but meaning nothing at all.
So you never get a sense of consequences anymore, or?
Well, there's apparent consequences. I mean, if I open this bottle of water and pour it down, the consequence will be it will wet my trouser legs, right? And like that is a story of cause and effect, and that like there's no difference to bias. But I will see the pouring and see the consequence of it falling, but that is happening timelessly, and it's not separate items that are having these stories about them. It's just absolute oneness in its dynamic, inexplicable beauty, appearing as somebody appearing to pour a bottle of water. And even the falling down, timelessly falling down, watching it, you could say there's apparent cause and effect, but when it's not occurring to anyone, it's so boundless and free. There's nobody there to gauge what time would even mean because nothing's moving against anything else. It's just total expression, just this water pouring. So you say about consequences. So there's apparent consequences. They appear to be the consequences of cause and effect. We set up this Zoom meeting. I had to be at a certain place at a certain time, and all those things are planning and all that still goes on. But it's not, there never was a me there doing that. And it's only the me that gives it the idea that it's a real thing that's even happening. So separate to that, it doesn't happen in a different way. It's absolutely, it's neither the same nor different. It's just unknowable because there's nobody taking a position, knowing it or understanding it. It's just the appearance of that. And that is wildly and insanely free. It's the collapse of the idea of what here means, because that contracted meanness that makes a place in space and the reality of oneself, when even that's not there, there's no orientation. It's just the appearance of this. And it's crazy because we're having this conversation and it seems like there's an awareness here that it seems like I'm explaining something, that I'm talking about something, I'm pointing to something, but that's not so. It's total oneness, just appearing as these words,
I
as
know,
these
it's such a
sounds.
mind fuck.
It's crazy. It never stops being a mindfuck. It's insane. That's absolutely mad to me.
But it's so funny because I heard Alexis mention, or maybe you mentioned that, I mean, even if it's not a happening, the collapse, I think you said that a couple of days before Alexis said that, like, it, it might happen
Mhm.
soon because there was no questions left or something like that.
Well, okay. So to be exact, what happened was we were in Vietnam and having all these lovely chats, and that there wasn't, there was, I guess, as still a me reporting, but there's things were going on. Like there was a few days where I didn't know where I was dead or alive, and it was getting very strange. But I said to Alexis, I said it's very clearly seen that the me isn't in the way of anything, that it doesn't need to drop for liberation to happen because it's done. There's already only liberation. So the idea of the me dropping was only in the dream of the me. And I said, so it makes no difference. It's already done. And that just became so clear. And Alexis said, it's absolutely, I don't want to give it the idea this is a process, but that sort of seeing makes it very hard for the me to carry on its nonsense. But
And then it
it's so
didn't, as
hard to
when it didn't.
describe because even the idea that happened and that's a possibility and that there's a me and there's a not is all the stories of the me. I mean, at the highest level of truth, which isn't, you can't even say truth because there's only this. But if we want to call it the natural reality, because it's just totally this, the fact that we appear to be discussing these factors around this subject is only the appearance that story makes sense. And it's about real separate things, real separate people happening and doing things in real time. And that story is only made real when there's somebody living it, when there's that reporting energetically of the living of that. When that's not there, then it's just this unbelievable dynamic freedom that has always been this. So nothing changes. It's just no longer being objectified, and somebody's aware of it and putting it in this context. So it's just so for Tobias, but it's not, Tobias isn't experiencing this, but you could say what appears to be going on here is words coming out, Zoom meeting appearing, but just no context for that. It's just that, just the appearance of that. So that's always a celebration, even if what's going on is me being in a lot of pain and going, oh my God, I wish this wasn't hurting. I wish it wasn't feeling so bad. That's still unconditionally just what it is. So there's not a Tobias going, oh, I'm still enjoying that. There's just no Tobias. So it's just what it is. So nobody's taking, so even if it is the apparent biological organism having a really bad time or in a bad mood, sometimes I'm in a bad mood, that's still just that organism apparently having that mood. And there's never an I was needed. There's no I in that. That made no sense to me before. I said, how can people get angry if they've got no me? How would that make sense? But it's just, we have emotions, feelings as an apparent biological organism, and all those things still go on. There never was an I needed. They just still appear to go on. So it's very normal and natural, the apparent. It's very natural. It's exactly the same. It's just free from the bondage of it being a real story that somebody's living.
Mhm.
It's
So
entirely free to be itself.
how did it happen that you started to speak about it and like do meetings or?
To be honest, I had absolutely said jokingly with friends when I started going to meetings, my God, if my me ever drops, which is how I saw it then, I wouldn't, I was a big mouth and a know it all. And I would have maybe thought at one point, oh, I'd like to be a speaker in the showing off way. But then when I got into it, I thought, oh, I'd never be a speaker. But after Vietnam, I have no IT skills at all. Somebody made a YouTube channel, invited me somewhere to speak, put it on the internet. I did nothing. And I just kind of rolled with it. And then Alexis and I just did a few ones together, really liked it because we're very good friends, right? Alexis is staying here at the moment. Um, and we just really enjoyed it. And a lot of people at first didn't get on very much with our presentation. For I don't know what people think they're trying to defend, but uh, Alexis and I have and anyone who's seen all our stuff, which is the no show, the no show.com, that's where all our stuff is. Um, we like to have a loving, friendly, communal atmosphere in the meetings. We like to really make it obvious that this is a place of profound non-judgment. And the energy that's so palpable in these meetings and in the Zoom meetings, and that I know you felt, is the incredible apparent relief of the tension of that contracted mehood and all the I mustness and holding onness that's implicit to it, finding an opportunity to hear it's all right, it's okay, and that relief and release can occur. And we've both seen that occur in these contexts of these meetings, and it's a very beautiful thing. And it's not like we feel that relief, but there's a relief from the burden of usness, of ourselves.
But
So
I mean,
nobody owns that freedom.
I guess
It's
you
just
might
freedom.
ask if it's already done, why would you have to speak about it? Or,
But that's kind of the crazy thing. Firstly, you definitely don't have to. There's no have to ness, but it appears to be happening. It appears to be going on. And why not? And it's a beautiful and fun subject. But for some reason, that this is no different to trees or anything else expressing the same thing. But this has the conditioning of using English and language and speech. And it's It's not saying anything. It's not explaining anything. It's just nothing. This is nothing. What nothing sounds like when it's talking. And sometimes if people listen in just the right way, that nothingness can almost be heard. The perfume can almost be scented. And that sort of habituated, the habit of that spin and pattern of that me and that energy of what's nextness and that seeking push can just relax a bit and almost like energetically feel its way to that subtle language of non-contraction. And because it's hard to describe, but that moment in Vietnam when I was on my own and it was 4 in the morning and I was on the beach and I'd been swimming on my own. And when it was really seen that it'd taken me a couple of days to even realize that the me was no longer there. That's how crazy it is. No one's there to know that. So if it's noticing happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And noticing it then happened. And it was like the truest macrocosmic exhalation, or more like, to be quite frank, more like a macrocosmic orgasm, because it was a massive held tension that was released. And so, in the beautiful way the French call an orgasm le petit mort, a little death, on macrocosmically, this is a death. And so that held energy went to the ends of the universe. It went out to the ends of the universe. And I know that's wildly poetic, but I would hand on heart say that is the truest painting I could picture I could paint of it. I mean, it's indescribable, but it's a relaxation of time and space being a fixed quanta. And so it was just a relaxation of the universal into the dynamic openness of what it truly is. It wasn't changing what in the story or the end of the story of continuity and time, it just released. And then that was the end of storyhood, because once the me is not there, it never happened. There's not a past. For it to have happened in, happening pasts, things are all its own stories. Outside of that, to speak poetically, none of those things make any sense. So it's just the immediacy of what is. So even if we tell a story like this, it's just the absolute immediacy of that story appearing, not referring to real things. We can talk about memories, but there's not a real place called the past where that lives. That's just memories, timelessly appearing as this. Total oneness appearing as memories. Nowhere is it a real actuality. And it's not taking place in a here. This isn't a place. This is placeless. There's a real feeling with a me that in that tension of the me that makes, I would suggest this is how I like to describe it. It almost makes the energetic notion of what here is. Because we might semantically know the meaning of the word here. If I ask you, Andrew, where are you? And you say, I am here, that's linguistically correct. But you would know with your eyes closed that this is here and that's there. But that here-ness concept is just a component of that me contraction. So when that's not there and there's not a meaning to here and there, then there's not orientation. It's just. Now, you can't paint a picture of that or use CGI because that would be in space. So this can never be seen or known. This is without the imposition of illusory real space. And similarly, time, without that dimension of time. So it's only that fixed me at the center that makes space make sense, because you have to have a here for there to be a there. And if there's no separate you moving against the world, then there's no thing called time if there's nobody experiencing it. So it's just like saying, is the Earth more left or right in the universe? It makes no sense unless you have an ordinal point. You can't take a bearing from it. So without that contraction, as Kenneth Madden says, it's free fall. Kenneth Madden, another peerless teacher, my personal favorite speaker on this subject. Um, Free fall, yeah. Nobody's free falling through it. It's just, let's use the word disorientation. There's not orientation of somebody in the center, the subject, walking through life. But Tobias doesn't bang into furniture. There never was a me there. It just is, life appears still to go on. There never was a me needed.
Is there any sense of being like more, it's hard to ask the questions, but more in touch with this when you're expressing it, or it's exactly the same when you're doing something like cooking or something else?
Um, well, there's something in the same way as there's something particularly poignant and beautiful about certain sunsets or flowers or love and romance. These things are still perfectly aware of, although it is there's no higher or lower. But during these meetings, there's some inexplicable facet of the tension that appears to be brought by others being relaxed that moves me to tears a couple of times, you know. And
Mm.
like that's not easy for somebody who's quite identified as quite a tough, like who likes to box every day, and like that wasn't easy, you know. But like you can get swept away by the extraordinary, you know, people have tough lives, and like the pressure of being a me and performing the me project and selling that position of this is how I must be looked at. I don't like to be looked like that, act like this. Society demands I present myself like this. And that's before you even get to the seeking of I feel uncomfortable. There's a dis-ease. I want to find out. I need the answer because then I might be free and comfortable. And what about those guys? They seem to have got it. I want to be like them. And that is the denial that this is it. It's only the maintenance of that energetic assuredness that this isn't it
Mm.
that maintains that this isn't itness. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't, there's nobody there to change that, but that can fall apart. All that weight of that just falls apart. And it's not like it needs to, and then there's liberation. That's the real sticky bit of thinking. A lot of people, so many people who come to non-duality, or more accurately, radical non-duality meetings, are deeply invested in the idea that the me must fall away, and then there'll be liberation, or I will be liberated, and that's the story of the me. Within the terms of the story of the me, you could say that was poetically true, but there isn't a me. There's no such thing. It's an illusion. And like we could say, yes, well, you say that, Tobias, but I'm still suffering with this illusion of the me. You know, that is the illusion. That's the illusion. Yeah, you're not suffering with the illusion. It's not your me. That me doesn't belong to you. It is the you, right? Without that, there's not a different you in a new way. There's just total oneness appearing as an Andrea. And that makes no sense. It has no meaning. But all the beauty, it's not the cold, joyless nothingness that could be mistaken for. It's the revelation of its dynamic, free wholeness. And that is unconditional love.
Okay.
Unconditional love. And that's home. It's not our home, it's just home. I know, sorry, I know I'll say one more thing just to conclude that point. Um, the most beautiful I love to dwell on this, but walking back from that beach in Vietnam, it was a very beautiful place we were staying on the retreat. So it was very verdant with lots of beautiful plants growing out everywhere, right? And it's like I'd been on the beach a bit longer, so maybe it was like 6 and dawn was coming. And I walked back through these plants, and it was walking back through an Eden that I'd never left. And it was with absolute clarity. Oh my God, home. And it's not Tobias went home, it's just home. And it's a very subtle distinction. That's what the story of Adam and Eve speaks to. Like, there's not the fig leaf of separate personality prior to the fall. It's just the absolute, this is just it. And it's so spontaneous. Just nobody sitting behind this, taking the receipts of experience. This is bad. This is my day. I'm doing this. I'm fit. It's just that. Just the talking, seeing appearing, uh, going to eat a meal appearing, and all the normal things appearing to appear. It's so free to be just that. And it's like with a great sanctity that the appearance is revealed as incredibly precious. And I mean, Tony calls it the beloved,
I
isn't
love
it?
it. Mhm.
The beloved. There's when it's not just a thing in a place called here, in a time called now, and I'm relating to it. That's its limitations. It's this thing, not that thing. It's happening now, not then. And without those energetic limitations, nobody, that this water bottle is just a water bottle when it's an object. But without those limitations, nobody knows what that is. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what that is. So it's exactly the same. There's nothing different. It's not flashing with great lights and Tobias is having a great psychedelic experience with it. It's just the absolute dynamic freedom of total oneness, energy, water bottling. And
It's so beautiful.
it's glorious. It's very, very beautiful. Yeah.
I can really feel that when you're talking about that, like that feeling of that home.
But it like in the character, in my character, in Tobias's character, I'd like to think I'm a nice, loving guy, and like, I know what it's like to be a seeker, and I know what it's like the frustration of this message because it's maddening sometimes. It's so paradoxical, and when you can't do anything with it, it's very annoying when you want to practice and you want to get better and you want to have these experiences. This message can be maddening. So there's a real sense of empathy for the apparent people coming, yet at the same time an absolute knowledge that there's not a real me. I mean, there's already not a you there. I mean, it's already the case. But what the joy is, it seems like more and more, and especially when Alexis and I in a live meeting when it's really the energy is so full. It's tech, and Alexis and I don't like the idea of being speakers and the listeners over there. We do try and make it very inclusive and very friendly and very easy for people to ask questions, whereas before they might not have felt comfortable. And in that bringing out, in the non judgment, where that me can feel almost like it's safe to let go of its endless ideas and its musts and its imperatives and it has tos, and it must try and relate to this and own it. And it's almost like we use the word basking a lot, don't we? It's almost like it can just relax and just let the system apparently energetically relax. And there's no longer so much of a need to grab hold of the appearance and to make it something, to make my me, to do my me right, relating to this. It just very naturally starts to be seen that, oh, there's nobody moving these arms. Oh, this is just talking appearing. Oh, that's all there ever timelessly is. And all the notion of that rigid life story being real just like bleeds out very softly, bleeds out. Some people, true, it does appear to go bang, but that's all just stories. I mean, that's stories of change in time. From the highest point of view, there is already just this. And that will never be known and it will never be understood. And, it sounds like a get out clause, but I mean, how could it ever be when it's all that there is? Yeah. And that the journey, when the journey is it too,
Mhm.
I mean, what would finding even mean?
Mhm.
Nothing's it's all one already. There's nothing, it's not coming from anywhere. It's not going to anywhere. It's explosively total already. Yeah.
I love that. Ah, you're so good at getting into the juice of this. I think
That's the thing.
that might be a good note to end on. Um, it's lovely to see you and hear you speak about this.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for inviting me on. What a joy.
And I'm gonna put
Yeah.
your information in the video so people can find you as well. So
Oh, that's wonderful. So yeah, the Alexis and Tobias Snow show.
you
Yeah, well, and likewise, we'll put yours up on ours, and let's mutually celebrate this extraordinary message.
basking in celebrations. I love that.
An invitation to annihilation.
Yeah. The hand grenade.
That's why we have the logo. A bejeweled hand grenade.
Yeah.
It's explosive. Just this.
Just this. Okay, much love.
God bless you, darling. Thank you so much again.
See
Mwah.
you later. Bye bye.
I'll say goodbye.